Dear friends in Jesus Christ, in today's Gospel, Jesus is speaking of the cup that he was about to drink to his disciples, particularly to the mother of John and James, because she was requesting Jesus, so when you come into your kingdom, please place this, my son, one at your right and one at your left hand. She was requesting that, and to that request only Jesus was giving them the great explanation. Would you able to drink the cup that I am to drink? So he asked them with a simple question, and they said, Yes, yes, Lord, we are able. And Jesus said, Yes, indeed, you are able to drink the cup that I am to drink. I am supposed to drink, but you do not know, but the will to sit at my right hand, to sit at my left, is not in my hand, but it is in the hand of God. It's up to the will of God. So like that he was giving the explanation, dear friends. So this is the third time Jesus is also telling about his death and death, the suffering, so that he will be handed over to the scribes and Pharisees, and they will have to crucify him. They will have to crucify him. In a way, on the way Jesus was, he was compelling the disciples to understand what is lying ahead before Jesus, that he had to go through a lot of suffering. He was making sure. And when you speak of suffering, Jesus had to go through the suffering of death sentence. So it was like injustice. It was a suffering of injustice. Jesus was not the person to be judged in that way, because he was a good person. He was doing good things, and it obviously was not for that to be sentenced to death. And he had to go through the suffering of scourging. Scourging represents the physical suffering that he had to go through. They will be whipping him, and they will be kicking him, slapping him, and spitting on his face, pulling his beard. Lot of suffering that he had to go through physically. He was also meaning that. And also the mockery of the soldiers. So they have to mock him. And this is a suffering of humiliation, suffering of insult, and suffering of being ill-treated, not disrespect. And he had to go through these things. Overall, when you analyze that, he had to ultimately take up the suffering, mental, physical, and emotional suffering upon himself for the sake of each and every one of us, dear friends. And that was the main focus of Jesus in his life, particularly when he was predicting his passion and death to the disciples. And also the request, as the mother of James and John was about, please place these people at your right hand, one at your right and one at your left hand. And Jesus says about, can you able to drink the cup that I am to drink? So what was that cup Jesus was talking about? So if you take the life of James had to die as a martyr. So his cup was the martyrdom. And if you take the life of John, so John had to live alone, to be a disciple, to be a disciplined person, to live a disciplined way of life, and then finally go for his natural death. Finally, he died as a natural. He had the natural death. About 100 years like that, he died. So therefore, that was his cup, and that was what Jesus was telling them about the cup. So in our lives, dear friends, as you see that Jesus is talking about the suffering, the difficulties that may come into our life, that we may face in our day-to-day life, maybe from our parents, maybe from our friends, anything that can come into our life, dear friends. But everything that we are going to face is only for the sake of Jesus Christ. It is for the sake of Jesus Christ, but God will mold us, and he will like a gold is tested in the fire, so he will mold us with the suffering and make us to be a perfect person. And ultimately what lies ahead, as Jesus was pointing out the suffering, so what lies ahead is that, so the resurrection, the glory that will be given to him after the death and resurrection after the death. So that glory is also will be given to us, dear friends. It is up to us when we face the sufferings, difficulties in our lives. Let us make it for the betterment of our life. Let us make ourselves to be perfect in that. Anything can happen, dear friends, in our lives. Let us make sure, let us set our goal on the right track to facing towards Jesus Christ, leading towards Jesus Christ, and which is obviously reaching to the omega point. Thank you.